Hello and welcome to the Warcraft Radio Race to World First coverage of Ny'alotha, Day 2. My name is Kexman and there is a lot to get through today, so let's head straight into it. Obviously the big news of Day 2 is Europe have entered the Race to World First. That's right, Method, Exorcist, just to name a few, are now appearing on the top 10 lists for boss kills. Obviously, we have a slightly different leaderboard to yesterday, so we'll take a quick look at that one. In first, Complexity Limit still taking the top spot after their kill of Raden earlier today. Pieces in at number 2 with 7 out of 12. Method in at number 3 with 7 out of 12 as well. We then have Aversion, Exorcist, and Practice, all at 6 out of 12 in 4, 5 and 6 respectively. And then following up with our top 8, we have Midwinter and Big Dumb Guild, both with 5 out of 12. However, this isn't the biggest talking point that's come from today's race. With their kill of Vexiona late last night during progress, all eyes are on Limit today with their Raden encounter. Raden was earmarked as one of the more difficult bosses in this mythic run, and difficult he indeed appears to be. One debuff that was causing issues though was Unstable Nightmare. This is placed on one player with 5 stacks. However, what would happen is there would be a large targeting circle around the player, and if anyone was within 15 yards when this debuff timed out, they would be hit with a massive amount of shadow damage, and would have the Unstable Nightmare buff placed on every single one of them. The obvious way to deal with this is to have nobody within that 15-yard range. However, it would still jump to the nearest player and lose a stack, forcing you to essentially have this debuff go on to 4 different players during this time frame without hitting anybody else. What Limit found though is if they had somebody inside the circle with an ice block or some other form of immunity, the debuff would harmlessly dissipate, making it so that they would not have to deal with the further 4 stacks during the fight. This was obviously spotted by Blizzard as something that wasn't intended and was hotfixed relatively quickly. During this time, Limit still had managed to put in 50 pulls and even managed to get a 15% wipe, coming close to killing Raden for the first time. This isn't the first time, of course, that Blizzard have hotfixed an encounter during a World First race, famously doing so in Siege of Orgrimmar with Thok the Bloodthirsty. However, that hotfix came in the middle of an already in progress fight. Method obviously entered the race today, and as the current champions of the World First race, all eyes are on them, and they very quickly moved up to 5 out of 12, killing Hivemind and Shad'har relatively quickly. However, they did have a bit of a stumbling block when it came to Zanesh. Now, this isn't necessarily in part to Method themselves. One of the main abilities of the fight is guiding a ball through a maze of obelisks. If the ball hits the obelisks or Ishara in the centre, it is pretty much guaranteed a complete wipe. However, the ball size is slightly different from its appearance to its hitbox, causing a couple of very confusing wipes for the guild during their progress on Zanesh. As soon as Zanesh were down, Method were able to move directly onto Vexiona. Vexiona is considered one of the easier mythic bosses this late into Ny'alotha, and within about 17 pulls, Method were finally able to move onto Raden. It's interesting to note that Method are currently fighting the hotfixed version of Raden and have been ever since their attempt started. So the way they are learning the fight is slightly different to Limit's, and it's going to be interesting to see if this impacts the World First race moving forward. Now, one of the things with the Race to World First that you always have to take into account is that things can change very quickly. Remember at the start of this video when I said that Limit was 8 out of 12 and looking to cement their position at the top of this Race to World First? Well, during the recording of this video they actually managed to kill Drestigath, which now puts them to 9 out of 12, a commanding lead over Pieces and Method. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle Il'gynoth and then move on to the dreaded fight of Ny'alotha, Carapace of N'Zoth. With day 2 of the Race to World First over, it's going to be interesting to see exactly how day 3 unfolds. Will Limit be able to maintain their position at the top with kills on Il'gynoth, or will Method and Pieces catch up? It's interesting to note that Pieces themselves haven't released any footage of their kills, nor are they streaming it, but according to the actual WoW Progress guidelines, they are ahead of Method currently, downing Vexiona before the current World First guild managed to. Whilst it may seem as though a couple of guilds have been struggling on Zanesh and potentially even Ra-Den, it's worth noting that we still haven't hit what many would be considering as the roadblock of the instance. Obviously, we've seen previous raids that have had bosses in the middle or towards the end of the raid that have caused severe problems for guilds. It's going to be interesting as to whether Il'gynoth is considered that boss, or whether or not Carapace is going to be the true first test here in Ny'alotha. Once again, thank you for joining us here on Warcraft Radio for our Day 2 recap of the Race to World First in Mythic Ny'alotha. Obviously, follow us on Twitter, which is down in the description below, so you know exactly when bosses are being killed. Also, make sure to click the subscription button and the little bell so you know exactly when we're going to be uploading our Day 3 recap. And for all of your needs, head over to warcraftradio.com/RWF. Thank you once again. My name has been Kexman, and I will see you guys tomorrow for the Day 3 Race to World First recap.